I wanted to bring a little bit of my personal story, a little bit of India. A lot of India is what you heard yesterday. Unfortunately, I don't have such a shining story of India to share for today. And some of the opportunities that are available in healthcare. These are usually delightful in your Indian output.
Yeah, whoa!
You're very nice, thank you.
So just to get started, what is really the Indian reality? We all talk about India shining. You heard a lot about how we're doing very well, on many of our parameters from yesterday. Something that excited me when I finished my PhD in pharmaceuticals and making new fancy drugs was to say that it is so far and removed from the Indian reality. The common man who wants to have access to something in Indian healthcare, whether you have a common cold or you have tuberculosis, TB, it's almost an alien issue in the US, but it's our common reality there. Things aren't easy. You don't find a doctor that easily, you don't find facilities that easily, and medications, that's a whole new story. And that's what excited me to say that as an Indian, I had the good fortune of actually getting good education, learning how to do cutting-edge research. How do I take it back and make it a little bit more applicable? How can I really contribute to something which to me perceived as a really big problem? So let's get good. So let's get started with the Indian reality. A way that you would want to look at how your healthcare system is doing is to see that, okay, for 1.3 billion people that we have in our country, how many doctors do we need to get started? And there are many, many metrics to do that. The World Health Organization has actually developed criteria to say that for 10,000 people, this is the number that you need, and these are the ratios that you need to sustain. So these are the World Health Organization metrics to say that for a country our size, which is dispersed the way we are, we need around 1.2 million doctors. We have, unfortunately, only 400,000. And that's really sad because the other reality that kind of goes with it, all of these 30-40% doctors that we have available practice in 80% of our medical infrastructure, which is all urban. So think about India. It's a huge mass of land that you see on your maps, wherein 80% of the population is living outside of these really big towns that you hear about, like the Delhis and the Bombays and the other emerging cities. They're all out there. Nobody has access to all of those big cities. All the medical facilities, all of the infrastructure is present in these small towns. Hence, healthcare in India, I would not want to use this term, but it's a luxury good. You have to be in the right place, in the right economic bracket, in the right city to be able to afford even basic healthcare. And that I feel is not fair when we talk about health for all, when we talk about equitable access. And that's kind of multiplied when we say India shining. This is India shining for me in healthcare. We are the diabetes capital of the world, we are the cervical cancer capital of the world, and to couple it up with that, we are the road traffic accident capital of the world as well. You think about it, we are like seriously up there when it comes to, people tell me, well, Zeena, think about it, it's 1.3 billion into whatever prevalence you add. So in absolute numbers, we are just up there. So if you want an opportunity, all of this just makes it very, very well. What is the government doing? When you look at countries like the US, where the government is spending close to 60% of the GDP, in India, traditionally it was less than 1%. Now we've just crossed the 1% mark of our GDP to saying, okay, let's just consider spending a little bit more. So we spend a little bit more than 1% of the GDP, government spending. The overall spending in healthcare is around 6%, which means most of the spending is out of pocket. Let me tell you a little bit of a story. So we got our independence almost 65 years ago. When the government actually took charge of the country, they said, oh, you know what? We have so many people, we will provide healthcare to all our people ourselves. We will be the provider. We will create the facilities, we will manage the facilities, we will manage all the supply chain and distribution. And then they realized that the parameters in terms of health indicators were all really, really bad. And in the last decade, the government said, we are doing a really shoddy job. Nothing is really adding up. So why don't we really move from being a provider of healthcare to provisioning healthcare, to regulating and paying for healthcare. And which is why, like the US, you will see many, many social insurance schemes doing questionably well in India. I wouldn't say they're doing really well, but they're doing questionably well. But there's a huge shift of gear to say that we are not really doing well. What I really like about the fact that there's an honest acknowledgement to say that, we should do and play to our strength. So what does this really leave us with? I will quickly go through this. When you talk about the Indian healthcare market, which is very different from the mix that you will see in the American healthcare market, is very service delivery focused. So service delivery in India makes it the largest chunk of our $35 billion industry that we have there, which is growing at more than 20% per year. So it's actually a very well-doing sector. In terms of indicators, I spoke a little bit about it. We are not necessarily doing too well despite our performance. This is one of the most common indicators that everybody talks about, which is infant mortality rate, whereas we've been coming down, but compare us to any other nation which spends less than us, it is bad, it's seriously bad. And we're still up there. And this, I'm telling you, this is the India average. The downside of an average is that it's a distribution, so we have many, many states which are at twice this number. So it's appalling when you look at the overall country. If you forget about 80% of the Indians, then there are a few shining examples to share. So what did we really learn? So what we really learned was that we don't have enough doctors in our country. Our government is kind of struggling, is repositioning of what can be done, what cannot be done. We are spending all money on healthcare through our pockets because we just don't have enough financing. And the healthcare indicators are still very, very questionable. This is a huge opportunity for the thriving private sector that we have. And on this front, we've actually done pretty well. So given I don't have too much time, I thought I will give you a snapshot of how the private sector has evolved in our country in the 4, 5, 6 decades that I can, share with you. So one thing that India actually ranks up pretty well is medical tourism. We are almost considered the capital of medical tourism globally. And why that? That's because of these corporate hospitals which started coming into being almost 4 decades ago. Now these corporate hospitals have put India on the global map. We are leading medical tourism, but these hospitals are almost inaccessible both in terms of where they are located and how much they cost by an average Indian. An average Indian could not go to most of these hospitals. So these are again very exclusive set of facilities which are available to some privileged Indians. This is what was there. This innovation actually started in the 80s and did pretty well. That sector is going pretty well, but these are mammoth organizations that are there, like seriously mammoth organizations. And then entrepreneurs realized that if a mammoth organization can exist in a few cities, why can't we create many small organizations? And that's when the affordable networks actually started coming in, and you would see. And these are, I put in 2 logos because I didn't want to cloud the slides, but there are hundreds in each category. So, this is just representative. And then we have the affordable hospital network to say, you know what? We have 1.3 billion in people in our own country. What can we do to take away all of the costs that are associated with mammoth organizations and make healthcare more affordable? These are the 50-bedded, 100-bedded hospitals that you will see spawned across our country. They did well. They've been doing well. This is where, in fact, when you talk about investments in India and private equity investment in India in healthcare, this is the band where all the money is going in because it's a well-developed business model. It's good return on equity for all that we learned in the last class. Boy, that was tricky. And, this is kind of a well-established, really well-growing market in India. 10 years ago, crazy people like me saw an opportunity to say that, why can we not do something in the ultra-affordable segment, saying first-line healthcare, you're closer to the people, you're a lot more affordable, and you connect with the value chain. You connect with these larger hospitals that are actually present. And what really motivated us the most was to be financially relevant. That is, of course, very important because you can't grow without that. A conversation we were having over dinner yesterday. And being socially significant as well. And how do you bring the two together? I'm sure many of you in the room are actually aware of this term called impact investing. very new, kind of shaping up in India as well. All the investors in the room, all the entrepreneurs in the room, all the people in the middle are reasonably confused, because when you talk about impact investments, measuring investment part is easy. Impact part, the entrepreneur has a different vision of it, the investor has a different vision of it. So it's a very interesting space, evolving every day, and I hope, wish, and see for ourselves that this will be the next phase of growth for Indian healthcare as we really expand into our market. So with this, we actually launched our network in 2008. I was fortunate enough to be the founder of this enterprise, and I ran it for 7 years. We've touched around 100,000 patients till date. In terms of business viability, the model looks promising, but I wouldn't say we have all the answers. Unfortunately, that's the reality of many other players that are existing. You say that, how do I tweak it so that the business model is investable enough and interesting enough for all the impact investors that we have in the room? So that's kind of the story of where we've been. And I thought that I should leave you all with one video. This was one award that we actually won last year, and it's considered one of the most, I shouldn't be bragging myself, but it is one of the most reputed awards that a social enterprise can get. So, and with this, I'm actually done. So this is video.